Good evening, sir. We're happy to have everybody here this evening with us on the Behind the Music podcast, episode 2, featuring Mr. Richie Works. Good evening, Mr. Richie. How are you, sir?
Good evening. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good deal. Glad to have you here. Honored to have you here, sir. Let's get started. Just give us a brief rundown of yourself, your family, and then we'll go from
hmm
there, okay?
Sure. So my name is Richie Works. I was born in Cleveland, Tennessee. Growing up through middle school, elementary school, middle school, and then high school, I was working doing gospel music for some local groups in this area. And then around 16, 17, 18, somewhere along there, I get the years mixed up. I got connected with Phil Cross, and I got hired as their piano player for Poet Voices. And then back in 2002, Poet Voices made the decision to come off the road full time, so they basically retired. And then, and then 15 years later, I think it was 2018, they resumed, started going on the road again on a limited schedule, a very limited schedule, generally 1 weekend a month. And then, but during that time, everyone had their own things going on. So I went to school, I got some degrees, and had my own career going. Uh, but then when I saw that the news that they were coming back, I contacted them again to basically offer my services. If they needed a piano player again,
Right.
I would be more than happy to come and fly and play with them periodically. So they allowed me to do that. And then a few years ago, we started doing some dates with the Kingsmen, and support bosses would have Brandon Reese play the drums with us.
Right.
And for somehow, just how it worked out on those dates, we also had the Dixie Echoes. So we also had Scoot Shelnup played the bass guitar
Yeah.
on those dates for Poet Voices. And then it just turned out that Brandon thought, well, let's have him play with the Kingsmen too. So then I think it was 2022, the Memphis Quartet show was the first time I actually filled in playing for the Kingsmen. Scoot was on the bass guitar, and of course, Brandon was on the drums. And then since then, anytime Poet Voices or the Kingsmen and Dixie Echoes are together, we generally share a band. And I also mentioned that Poet Voices does travel on a limited schedule. And also, I am employed elsewhere, so I'm not a full-time Southern Gospel pianist. So I only play for Poet Voices when my schedule allows. And then if there are holes in my schedule, gaps where I could be playing for Poet Voices, but they're not anywhere local that I can get to and back within a decent amount of time due to my work schedule. But if the Kingsmen are nearby, then I'll contact them, say, hey guys, I'm nearby. Do you want a piano player? And if they want a piano player for that date, then they'll allow me to come fill in for them as well. So that's generally it. And just, at this point, my involvement in Southern Gospel music is just helping people that need a piano player for certain events when my time allows.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so far, let's say you said been playing with the Kingsmen a little bit. Um, of their music, is
Mm-hmm.
there, I guess, the easiest word to say, what's the hardest song? I guess somebody asked what was the hardest song of theirs to play.
The hardest song of theirs to play. Oh my gosh. Uh, well, I wouldn't. Well, maybe the Judgment, and the reason I say that is because it has uncommon chords in gospel music. So I used to have to read a chart every time I play that song, but I've been playing for them for the past few years. I know the song by now, but I think that one may be the more difficult to actually try to remember the chords without having to read a chart. As far as technically doing any licks, Meet Me at the Table, and the only reason that is a difficult song is because it's in the key of B, and that's not a. It starts out in the key of B, and that's a very difficult key for piano players if you're thinking about doing any sort of fancy licks.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's standard Southern gospel stuff. I grew up listening to the Kingsmen.
Yeah.
Being from Cleveland, Tennessee, I grew up listening to Anthony Berger, and I always try to copy him. And he was from Cleveland,
Okay. Yeah.
and of course, he played for the Kingsmen for a long time. So I grew up listening to all of their stuff. So nothing really difficult other than what I mentioned already.
Right. That's right. Um, you mentioned charts. I guess you used the
Yeah.
Nashville number system. Is that correct?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, national number system for everything.
That's right.
Yeah, if you put sheet music in front of me, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
I took bass lessons from Adam Borden, and he taught me a little bit of the do re mi fa sol la ti do. symbols and all. I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
can't remember, but he also mentioned the Nashville number system. That kind of clicked, you know. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That makes music a lot easier for everybody, in my opinion.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's say if you had like Scoot probably wouldn't have this trouble, but if he did, if y'all was playing something, uh, you start out, just tell him what key. You say like one, go to your
Yeah.
four, go back to one, and maybe like
Yep.
a six
Yep.
minor or something. You know, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done that before. Yeah, we've done
That's
that
right.
plenty of times.
That's right.
Not really, not anymore. When we first started doing this, playing together, we had to do that a few times. But now that we all know each other's songs, we don't really run into that anymore.
Right. That's
But
right.
that is an option. If that does need to be done,
Right.
we do have that option of doing that.
That's
All
right.
we're all well versed in the national number system.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Um, Speaking of that, you said with the Kingsmen, I know you played with them, of course, but the other group you mentioned was Poet Voices, and you
Yes,
said you started there in the early '90s. Is that correct?
in the late '90s.
Late '90s. Okay. Yeah.
Late '90s.
Um, I guess some of their bigger hits back then maybe was "I Stand Redeemed" was one.
So it's "I Am Redeemed."
Uh
So
huh.
the very first number one hit was "Jesus Built a Bridge,"
Yes.
and then the great. So they performed that on a Gaither video.
Hmm.
I think it was probably in the '90s. They also did "Grace and Glory." That was on a Gaither video in the '90s. And then "I Am Redeemed." Um, Plus, Phil Crosses wrote songs for other groups
Yeah, like
that
cathedrals and
became
all. Yeah.
the Cathedrals and the Greens and the Hoppers. Yeah,
Yeah. That's right.
I think the song. So that the song that was number one on the singing news charts when Pop was retired, I believe it was number one on the chart at that time. It was "The Key." So
Yes. Okay.
basically, back in 2002, Pop was retired with the number one song on the chart.
Yeah. When you was with Poet Voices when y'all recorded the new CD, what was your technique for learning the songs where you can play them out live per se?
Sure, sure. So learning the songs. So for this last record, uh, I was able to get the charts from Trey Ivy. So
Mhm.
I actually had those charts, and I just go off of those chords from the charts. If I did not have his charts, then I would just be listening to the songs on my own and writing my own chart for the. Uh, and then, for as much as I play for Port Wostis and the Kingsmen, you know, anything new, then I would probably need to take a chart with me to play it. And I would usually take that on an iPad or a phone, depending on how many charts I would need for that particular date. But it would generally just be listening to the new songs, writing out charts, and then rehearsing with it 3 or 4 times. Make sure I got any unexpected changes.
Right. That's right. Okay. Gotcha. Um, and usually those, I mean, once you practice them enough, they just come like second nature to you. Would
Oh
you
yeah,
say?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
Right.
A lot of being a musician, and you're a bass player, you know this. But a lot of being a musician is muscle memory. That's
Oh
why
yeah.
you
Yeah.
practice and practice until you can't
Mm-hmm.
mess up.
Yeah. 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 We the group that I play with, we did I actually played on the recording that we done,
Mm-hmm.
which was a nervous time for me that day when we was recording, but especially the scratch vocals, and then you go back and fix whatever. But
Yeah,
don't that sound like heaven? Palmetto State Quartet released that back
yeah.
ever how many years ago, and that's got a lot of I wouldn't say unique chords, but just a bunch of chords. The verse I think starts out on the four instead of the one,
Mm-hmm.
or the intro maybe.
Yep.
Excuse me, does yeah. And just like you said, you just practice and practice until you memorize it. And we still do it to this day, and you
Yeah.
don't think nothing about it. You just play it. When they call it out, just kick off
Exactly.
with it. Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
Yep. Exactly.
Uh,
But
yeah.
still, for some reason, I've got to the point where
Hmm.
I need to use charts more often than I used to be able to,
Okay.
because now you're thinking 20 years of music, you got to be
Yeah.
and then if you're not doing it all the time, every week, like
Right.
we used to back when I first joined Port, was this it's going to be difficult to have this stuff memorized.
Yeah.
So
That's
more times than not now that I do have to rely on reading a chord chart just to remember the chord progressions of the newer songs. The older
right.
songs, no, but the newer songs, I still have to rely on that.
Right. You mentioned that brings something else to my mind. Practicing with with the voices and all. Did y'all get together like during the week or something and went over, or did it during sound check or what have you?
No, we did not. So even when we were touring full time, we didn't. So we would tour 4 days a week, and then we were off the rest. So we were generally we would generally leave out Wednesday night, and then get back on Monday morning. So we really just had Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday during the day for our families. So we didn't get together to do any kind of rehearsal. If the vocalists need any sort of rehearsal, they would rehearse either in the car or in the bus or whatever we are riding in for that weekend. They would rehearse at that point with the tracks that were recorded from the studio musicians. And as far as me being a piano player, then that's my task to do on my own, to just make sure I am prepared to perform on stage at that level.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that's always interesting. I always wondered about that with different groups, how they would, I guess, just give
Yeah.
them the tracks from the record studio and just go over them on their own time, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even with the Kingsmen, back, what was it? Not this past year, but 2023, we played at the Memphis Quartet show.
Yeah.
And we did the first couple of songs live. So lots of times we would play with the track. So you had the option to remove your live instruments if you want, or if you don't want. And then, so sometimes we do that, but at that particular date, we did the first two songs completely live.
Yep.
The only time that I had played it before with them was during sound check. We went over the song once. So I basically had to be able to know it at that time.
Right. Yeah. And
so there's not really much time to rehearse when you're traveling as much as these people are.
That makes sense. And I guess at that time too, would you say kind of nervous as well too, I guess?
For that was the first time that I played. Well, not 23. 22 is the first time that I played with them. I was nervous then because growing up listening to Anthony Berger, and then in the late 90s when I got the job at Poet Horses, I still enjoy the Kingsmen's music. So I listened to Andrew Ritchie playing, and just those guys are phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
I just could not imagine even coming up with the stuff that they're playing in my head. So,
right.
But yeah, you're right.
Yes, you mentioned Andrew Ritchie, and of course you had Jason Self on bass guitar, and that jigger, he was just phenomenal. Jason. Yeah.
Yep. And then when Andrew Ritchie left, Nick Sushi, and I see you have him coming on. In a few days.
Yeah. He's smart too, like yourself. I mean, y'all just
he's a great player.
How do y'all come up with that stuff? It's just amazing to me.
He's a great player. It's a lot of that Kingsman style as far as piano wise. So growing up, I always listened to Southern gospel, and I listened to mainly the Kingsmen, the Cathedrals, and Gold City, and that's really all I knew about. Yeah. And but I wasn't very interested in the vocalists or the songwriters. It was always the piano players. So I always liked Anthony Berger, Andrew Ritchie, Roger Bent, of course, and Tim Pardon back when he played with Gold City. I loved that. I love those, and also the Neelands, because the only reason I got hooked on the Neelands music is when Stan Whitmire was playing for them.
That's right.
Because I always gravitated towards the piano players.
Right. That's right.
So so the Kingsman style, at least back when Anthony was playing, it was more of a busy style of piano playing, even when it was only Andrew and later Nick, because at that point they were traveling with a bass player, a drummer, and a piano player, right?
Right. That's right.
So you got the bass and the drums. You had the bass and the drums carrying the low end, and you got a little bit of the chords going on, helping out with the rhythm on the piano. But you also need someone to fill in the holes.
Right.
So if you don't have a harmonica or electric guitar or steel guitar or something like that to fill in the holes, then you also need the piano player filling in the holes so it doesn't sound boring. So that's where you sort of get to where the piano may be sounding a little more busy than what other groups may have.
That's right.
So that does make it a little more difficult because you're always having to think how to fill this up, make it sound bigger than what it would actually be otherwise.
Right. That's right.
So,
yeah.
But Andrew and Nick they were great at that.
Right. Yeah, okay, because you answered my question there again. Talking about your mindset, I guess your mind, the wheel's always turning inside your mind, because like you say, the piano carries a lot, carries an awful lot.
Yeah, for that style, my mind's always working when I'm playing for them live, and there's no track. It's just me, Brandon, and Scoot, or whoever we'd have playing bass at that time. Your mind's always going, and I'm thinking, okay, so I have another chorus coming around. can I play here that I didn't already play so it doesn't sound repetitive?
That's right.
But sometimes, it's gospel music, so a lot of this stuff is repetitive. You can do
Yeah.
the same thing on multiple courses. But
That's
yeah,
right.
your mind, as a piano player in that style, your mind's flying 90 miles an hour.
That's right. I know, like we do the redback hymnals at church, and
Yep.
going in like the chorus or the verse, on me on bass, 4 string bass, I do like a walk up or a walk down, basically what I'll
Mm-hmm.
do. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you go to a two, I'll hang out on that one. I'll hit that
Mm-hmm.
one twice, and then one sharp two. Do it that way, or two
Yep.
flat, I
Yep.
guess you would say. Yeah. Uh, I learned
Yeah.
that from my local steel guitar player. He taught me that little lick. I said, well, it makes sense, just a little extra, something you can fill in, like you say, fill in the
Yeah.
gaps. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. Speaking of performing live, mainly your piano rig or your keyboard. What all did you use? What products did you use or gear did you use?
So I know a lot of people nowadays they like the Nord keyboards, and I played those several times when we go out to concerts. Generally, when we go to a concert, if there's a piano there or a keyboard there,
Right,
and people don't mind me using it, I would prefer to use that just so I don't have to carry anything in.
right.
But playing on a Nord, it feels to me like a toy, and
Oh,
the keys are not weighted. So if your
yeah.
finger accidentally slips over any note getting to where you actually intended to go, it's going to sound out. It's going to sound terrible.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
played on the Nords quite often, and I hate those.
yeah,
So I prefer the Yamaha.
yeah.
And the one that I like the most would be the Yamaha P525 or the P515. So that's what Gerald Wolf has. Or the Kingsmen just bought one, the P525. But the one I travel around with is the P125. And the reason I travel around with that one is because it's light.
Hmm.
And so if I'm carrying this stuff in by myself,
Oh
it's
yeah.
easy to travel with,
Hmm.
and it's fairly inexpensive. So if traveling on the road, if something happens and it does break, I can quickly buy another one the following week.
Right. That's right.
So for right now, it's the P125.
Yeah. My twin sister, she plays piano. She got a keyboard, and I think she talked to Gerald Wolf about it. Sent him an email or something, and
Mm-hmm.
basically told her the Yamaha, and because of the weighted keys, that's the big thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. In my opinion, a Yamaha. So if for the style that I play,
Hmm.
if you're looking for a bunch of different sound options, Nord may be better. But for
Right.
me, I only need a solid piano sound. So Yamaha has the best keyboards for what I need there.
Yeah,
So they have
that's right.
solid piano sounds and they're solid filling keyboards.
Yeah, gotcha. Would you play the piano? Do you rather have a monitor wedge monitor, or actually in ears?
It doesn't matter when you're.
Yeah.
uh, It that doesn't matter.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
I can work with either one.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Uh, Going back to, I guess, bass player. Would you play with a bass player? What do you look for in a bass player when you're playing with one?
So yeah, when I'm playing with a bass player, so I want someone that's solid and someone that's not overplaying. Because a lot of new musicians and young musicians, and I was the same way when I was younger, they would overplay. So you would have a bass player doing runs all the time, and it was whether it's needed or not. So you want someone. If you listen to how Scoot Shellnut plays, it that's great. It's spot on. It's you do these licks when there's an opening, when no one else is doing a lick. Otherwise, you're solid. You're playing your notes in time, and so basically, I want someone that's solid player that's not overplaying.
Right.
And that's the same way with any musician. You don't want a drummer that's overplaying or a piano player that's overplaying unless that style is needed. You
Right.
want people who can know what to play, and it sounds classy, and it's just not overdone.
Right. Had a bunch of people tell me that when I was started playing, and I try to take that tip to heart, really, because
Mm-hmm.
bass player, you want to be recognized, but then you don't want to step out too much, and just you want to kind of lay
Exactly.
back. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um.
Well, thinking about it as a piano player, as far as not overplaying, here's my mindset. So whether I'm playing for Pope Horses or the Kingsmen, or if I'm filling in for someone else, so I'm taking the full set of the group. We know what the songs are before we go on stage, right?
Right.
So generally, the first song I would step out a little bit and get noticed by the audience. Maybe a little on the second song, depending on if it's back to back upbeat songs. After that, you won't hear from me again until the very last song. I'll just be in the pocket.
Yeah,
So
makes sense. Okay, good advice. Yeah, okay, real good advice. Um, let's see. Any road story with your time with Port Voices, I guess, because that's who you mostly travel with, that you might could share a funny road story, or memorable road story, road experience.
yeah, yeah. I'd say I knew you would ask that, so I've been trying to think about this all weekend long, but
Yeah,
I do not have a good memory. So a good road story. I won't mention any names of who done it or anything like that. But
yeah,
so we were traveling. We had a new bus driver, and at that point we had a bathroom and a shower on the bus because we were doing many dates a year. We were traveling full time at that point, and then so that somehow a brush got stuck in the toilet, but nobody said anything about it. Nobody knew anything about it, and come to find out, we do think that maybe the driver accidentally dropped it in there but didn't tell anyone. It was a new driver that we were trying out. Anyway, so everything that was going in the toilet after that happened, it was started to back up on you, of course. And so the only way to figure out how to fix it, so we had to get under the bus, and one of the people in the group actually stuck their hand up the pipe and started pulling out toilet stuff
yeah.
until we got it all cleaned, and including the brush, and that was nasty. But it's one of those rememberable moments that when you're living this close in a close quarters like that with people, you do about these strong relationships. It's like a family. You sort of do what you got to do to get things done. To just you sort of remember those type of things when people do things for you, or if you do things for them, they will also remember. But that's probably one of the most memorable moments that I had
Right.
on the road.
Now you also played when y'all went to Quartet Convention in Louisville. Is that correct?
Yeah, I played in Louisville twice in 2000 and 2001. And then I came off the road just before the Quartet Convention in 2002. So, yeah, I got to
I've
play
never
there.
made it to Louisville Quartet Convention. I've been to one at
Hmm.
Fusion Forge time too, but I've heard it was pretty neat experience in Louisville. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was neat. So I played, so I played with Port Voices in 2000 and 2001 at the Quartet Convention there. But the Quartet Convention in 1999, that was before I was with Port Voices. But I was going there to audition for another group. And that was our first. Me and my dad went, and that was our first time there. But we didn't know anything on the back end. So, but through my other connections growing up with the local groups that I played with, I knew Kirk Talley. So we ran into Kirk Talley, and he brought us in, gave us his passes to actually get into Quartet Convention back in 1999. And so that was my first experience of the Quartet Convention and something of that magnitude in gospel music.
Yeah.
And plus, it also showed, showed me how much of a family that the artists are.
Yeah.
How welcoming that Kurt Talley was to actually offer that to me and just bring me into the family. And then the next following year, I was there with Phil Cross and Poet Voices.
You mentioned it being a family per se. Back
Mm-hmm.
back in April 2021, my mom passed away all of a sudden. And I don't
I'm
know how
sorry to hear that.
I don't know how he figured out or how he found out about it. But Phil Cross, he actually sent me a message on Facebook on Messenger, said
Mm-hmm.
he was praying for me and my family. If we need anything, just let him know. I was really shocked by that because I've never met the man myself, but that really,
Yeah.
kind of like, hey, I believe he's the real deal. Yeah,
Oh, he is. He's very
yeah,
sincere, very touching. He has a very interesting way with words as well, and that comes out in his songwriting.
right,
But he could be watching TV or just having a conversation, and if there's something you say or something that he may remember someone else saying,
right,
that sparks something in his head, and then God uses that, and he'll come out with something very inspirational
right,
that may even help you at the moment, or something that he's going to do with the song later. It's
that's
just amazing just to see the hand of God on Phil and see
right.
how he operates.
Uh,
It's amazing.
oh yeah, yeah. Very neat. Yes, sir. That's right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one other quick thing before I let you go, Richie, and I appreciate you, sir. Would you
Oh, no
say
problem.
would you say your biggest influence is Anthony Berger? And if so, I know
Yes.
you're from his hometown. You know, y'all from the same hometown. Um,
Hmm.
if you have any memories of him when you met him or whatever, just share those if you don't mind.
Sure. So I met him several times growing up, but the biggest memory I had. Okay, so growing up, I was playing for a local group, and the group was called Tennessee Harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the leader of that group was his name's Eric Watson. He became the sheriff of Bradley County. He later became a lawmaker for the state of Tennessee. So he got into politics. Anyway, so while I was with that group, we did a what do you call it, like a homecoming or annual singing to celebrate
Okay.
the anniversary of the group.
Yeah.
And we always had Kurt Talley there, and so that's how come I became friends with Kurt Talley and got to know Kurt Talley. So this is before Poet Voices, of course. So one time, me and a few other people from Tennessee Harmony, the group that I was playing with, we drove up to Maryville, Tennessee, to hear Kurt Talley, Ivan Parker, and Anthony Berger do the trio
The
thing.
trio. Yeah.
So the trio. So Anthony was on stage at the time, and Kurt Talley and Ivan Parker were in the back. And of course, we went in. We knew Kirk, so Kurt introduced us to Ivan, and then Kurt knew that I played the piano, so he had this idea that him and Ivan was going to have this idea. Once they on the second half, when they got on stage, they were going to start the song. I got that old time religion in my heart, and like right after the intro, stop it, and Kurt's going to call someone from the audience to come play the piano and have Anthony sing. So he
Okay.
called me up. So that was a memorable moment because I actually got to play piano for Anthony Berger to sing.
Okay. Yeah. Don't
So
you
that was
wish you
cool.
had
That
a
was in 1999.
Don't you wish you had an iPhone or something back then
Oh,
to record it? You know.
oh yeah. Well, Kurt Talley did at that point in time in his ministry. He had a newsletter that went out, so he did have pictures of that in the newsletter, and I did
Ah.
see it once. But of course, that was more than 20 years ago, so I no longer
Yeah.
have that newsletter. But it was a great moment.
Yeah. Oh.
And I also remember, now this is before that, when I first started learning the national number system.
Mhm.
For some reason, I wasn't getting it, and it wasn't clicking. So I wrote, this is back before email, or at least before I had email.
Yeah.
So I wrote Anthony Berger a letter, a handwritten letter,
Yeah.
telling him that I was trying to learn the national number system. If he could actually just let me see what one looked like, a professional national number system chart, and he actually mailed me back one of his. So that
Oh,
was
that's
it was
neat.
amazing. So
You
yeah.
still have it today?
I do not know.
Ah.
No, I didn't see the need to keep it.
Yeah. That'd be pretty neat to have. You know. Yeah. I'm kind of funny like getting stuff like frame and stuff. You know. Yeah. That'd be pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd
but
be pretty neat.
see, so I always tell people this. So a lot of people compare. So I grew up very poor, so I couldn't take piano lessons or anything of
Yeah.
that nature. So I just always listen to Anthony, just because his piano playing was so uh, exciting. I
Right.
always
Yeah.
listen to him and just try to copy what he did on the piano.
That's
So
right.
much of my style is based on his style alone. And then, but I always tell people that because a lot of people compare me to him,
Yeah.
they say that I remind them of him. And so I
Yeah.
always tell them June 1961, Anthony Berger was born in Cleveland, Tennessee. 20 years later, June 1981, I was born in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Ah.
And
Okay.
then in his teenage years, Anthony Berger started playing gospel music. And in my teenage years, I also started playing gospel music.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of similarities there.
That's
So
right. That's pretty
just
neat there.
interesting history. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I learned that little info when you did that video here a while back when you went to the cemetery and all there in Cleveland. Or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland. Yeah, that's
Yep.
pretty neat.
Yep. He's buried not too far from where I live. So
Okay. Yeah, that is neat.
it's
That is
interesting.
neat. Yes, sir. Richie, one of the last thing. Do you have any piece of advice you would give to a young musician that maybe wants to get started in Southern gospel or play locally like myself
Yes.
or
Yes.
anything
Yes.
like that?
Yes. I do. I do. So as I mentioned, growing up, I always try to copy Anthony Berger. And then other than that, I would listen to Tim Pardon and Stan Whitmire and Roger Bennett. And those were the guys that I would only listen to. So if you're having so now I have this pool of knowledge, right?
Right.
But there's other piano players out there that may have a separate pool of knowledge. And so
Right.
they would not think to do the things that I would think to do based on my pool of knowledge. And I would not think to do the things that they would do based on their pool of knowledge. So I would recommend, yes, listen to your favorite Southern gospel artists, your Southern gospel piano players, but also branch out into other styles. and mostly, I guess, jazz, like Oscar Peterson, great jazz piano player.
Okay.
So listen to other piano players from jazz. Roger Williams is a great piano player as well. He's the only, well, I don't know now. I know it used to be, but he was the only person he's a known piano player that had the number one song on a Billboard chart. And it was the Autumn Leaves that he did, the
Oh,
jazz standard. And I don't remember back what year that was.
right,
But I do recommend listen to your Southern Gospel piano players, learn what they're doing,
right,
but then listen to a lot of your jazz players and just try to copy everything you hear.
right. That's right. Good deal. Good deal. Rich, is there any way anybody? I know you just released a new instrumental CD, and it's
Mm-hmm.
on Apple Music and on Spotify, I guess too, maybe. Would you like to
It's on all
plug
of them.
that or
Yep.
your website or Facebook page, whatever, if you don't mind?
Sure. Well, sir, I have my Facebook handle, so whatever you call it, facebook.com/Dr. Richie Works, DrRichieWorks, or I'm also on Instagram under the same handle. And more recently, I've signed up for X, which used to be called Twitter, and my handle there or username, whatever you want to call it, it's Rich Works Blog. So. And then my new album is available on all the online digital retailers. If you wanted a physical copy, you can either connect with me at one of the concerts that you may see me at, or if we're not going to run into each other in that method, you can always reach out to me online, and we can set something up that way where you could send in money through PayPal or something, and I can just mail you the CD.
And it
But not
is very
only
good.
is the album ready, I've also released the accompaniment tracks for the album.
Okay.
So the main reason that I wanted to do this album, I don't travel full time enough to make an impact in Southern gospel music. So me releasing an instrumental album was sort of, if that was the only purpose, that would be irrelevant. Nobody's going to care about my instrumental album. So the only reason that I wanted to do it is because I wanted to make accompaniment tracks available to other musicians, other church players, or other Southern gospel players that might not could be able to afford to purchase accompaniment tracks, or that do not have musicians that they can play with at that level where they can actually perform something like that. So now I've done what I wanted to do. Now church musicians, they have 33 songs to pick from. If they wanted to pick a new song for an offertory,
Oh,
you got 33 brand new tracks you can play with. So
yeah.
that's the main reason that I wanted to do this.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Somebody like me, like a bass player, something to practice with. That's very wise.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good there,
Yeah.
Richie. That's good. Yeah, yeah. And I was surprised. I was surprised you put on there when he put a little sunshine in. I had to listen to that. Yeah, we do that from time to time at church. That was very interesting. You did a really good job on that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Really
good.
good job.
It's
Really
a
good
slightly different arrangement. It
job.
almost sounds like I guess like a Nintendo game, like that kind of
Yeah. Yep.
music.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what you'd call that, but
That's right.
it's a different kind of music.
But hey, that's like you saying, getting out of that square box, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Well, Richie, I appreciate you, sir, and appreciate you doing this podcast with me, and we may, hey, in the future, may get you back on again to talk about some more road stuff and stuff
I
like that.
wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Richie, I appreciate you,
Yeah, I
sir. You take
appreciate
care of
that. So,
yourself, sir.
all right, you take care as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.